Morning, Toastmasters.
Good morning.
I'm a little concerned about today's speech, to be honest with you. A lot of it depended on the introduction. Carrie, that just wasn't good enough. I don't know if I can deliver this correctly. Now, obviously, I'm joking. He did exactly what I sent him. He read it word for word, and that's exactly what I needed. But the reason why I'm having this presentation today is this company behind me. It's Centrix Animal Health. It's a company I went to starting in August of this year. We have 40 total employees, 10 of them full-time. And so when I was taking this opportunity, I understood that I was going to be wearing a lot of hats. This is not the opportunity or the time or place to point to other people when things aren't working. So I went back to the book that really changed my outlook on life, not just my career, but how I interact with my family, my kids, colleagues, etc. And that book is Extreme Ownership. I'm going to hand this out at the end to the Enthusiasm Award, but hopefully the award winner will understand why it's important and significant. How many are familiar with this book or these authors? So a fair number. That's great. And it's great, too, because when I came back to this company, I originally read this book 3 years ago. But I revisited it when I took this new job. And it's funny how you always forget little things. And I went back and I watched the videos associated with this. It's broken down into 3 parts. Part number 1, which we get into the most focus, is winning the war within. It's really the individual. It starts with you. Before you worry about anybody else, you need to worry about yourself. Number 2 is laws of combat, and that really gets into the tactics and execution. Working within an organization, how you make sure you deliver against your mission. And then finally, sustaining that victory. Once you succeed, it doesn't stop there. See, that's the difference in life. Sporting events, it's interesting. Take football, for instance. You work and work and work for that Super Bowl, and that's your destination. What's so interesting in life, there is no destination. You keep going, and that's the real difference between who's successful and who's not. But because I only have such a little time, I want to focus on the part that's about you and what everybody in this room can take with you today. And for those that have read this book, or for those that have encountered the authors, it's just a good refresher of what's important. Chapter 1 of Winning Within is about the concept in the title of the book, Extreme Ownership. Extreme ownership starts with you owning everything that happens to you and your life. What that means is the big things in life or the small things in life start with you. If your boss is not giving the right information or the right direction, that's your fault. If your team is not executing, that's your fault. If you get in a car accident when you leave this parking lot, and I pray to God nobody gets in a car accident, it's your fault. It's such a freeing concept. These guys established this in Ramadi, Iraq. So the 2 authors are ex-SEAL military operation. And they led operations in Ramadi, Iraq, after the invasion and the United States took it over. These 2 leaders and officers in the military were tasked to take back that city and start to establish a local military that eventually the Iraqi civilian militia would take over and lead. They had a massive mission in front of them, and they knew it was their responsibility, nobody else's, to figure this out. So this isn't little issues that we deal with every day. This was life and death consequences, and that's where this started. Chapter 2 gets into teamwork, and as a leader, the idea that there are no bad teams, there are only bad leaders. Jocko gave a story in this book about his time when he was in the SEAL boot camp arena. So everyone has probably heard of seen of like the really horror Hell Week situations. He was one of those drill sergeants. But it's not just 1 week, it's 6 months of training. One of their training events or contests, and mind you, these SEAL officers, or excuse me, those that are trying to become SEALs or training through this process, they had an event where they had to paddle one of their boats out to sea paddle it back in, get it to the beach, lift it over their head, a team of 6, and run it to a finish line. And they would do that over and over again. The team that won would get a break. The team that lost had to do extra calisthenics. You did not want to be the team that lost. This happened over and over again. What they found was interesting is the team that won the first time kept winning, and the team that lost kept losing. And what they also noticed is the team that kept losing, the leader, the crew chief, kept yelling at his teammates, blaming them for not doing their job. So they had a quick discussion. Is it an issue of the team, or is it the leader? So they brought 2 of the leaders up forward, and they asked them to switch. Now, the crew chief of the winning team had the deer in headlights look like, why do I want to switch teams? Now I'm going to be stuck with that. But he said, yes, sir, got it. He moved on. The crew chief, and they asked the other crew chief of the losing team, do you think you can win now? He said, yes, sir. Very next competition, the crew chief of the winning team that got moved over led that last place team into victory, and the crew chief of the losing team took second. They proved their theory. It's not the team, it's the leader. And that's such a profound statement of that control and influence you can have on others. Chapter number 3, believe. When they were in Mahdi, Iraq, one of their #1 missions is to train civilians to learn to defend their own area. As a military personnel located there, for those that haven't experienced, you know the most important thing is your brotherhood, trusting the man next to you, the person next to you. If you can't trust them in that environment, your life is at risk. Nobody wanted to work with this personnel, but they were given that mission, and they knew if they didn't believe in accomplishing that mission, that other people's lives would be at risk in the future. So even though this is a mission, a long shot, they 100% believed in it and made it their priority to make sure they accomplished it. And finally, check the ego. This all comes down to ego. Where extreme ownership fails is your ego gets in the way. And so whenever you start blaming someone else, you need to stop for a second and ask, did you do everything in your control to stop that situation? Finally, this is a mantra, something I want everyone to leave here with. Anytime something happens to you, I don't care if it's good or bad, I want your response to be good. And I say it in that way because that's this deep, gritty, still voice, good. And that could be something as trivial as someone cuts you off in traffic, you say, good. This gives me a chance to practice my meditation or how I resolve small conflicts, right? It could be your boss giving you a project you don't want, and you say, good, because that's your opportunity to shine. So I want to end this speech, and I'm going to count to 3, and I want to hear everybody in your grittiest, still voice possible say good. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good. Have a great Friday, everyone.